Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hey, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest today. We have a real treat from right here in Upton. We have Joe Maruszczak. I've got that right.
Perfection, Jan.
He is our superintendent of our Minden Upton schools, and I've seen him so many times. You know, you turn on, right here in Upton, you turn on channel 192, and there it is. There's the school. And there's Joe, and you've always got your PowerPoints going.
I sometimes I'm a little excessive with the PowerPoints, but I like to make my points when I make a presentation.
Joe, when did you start being our superintendent?
I started back in 2011, so this is my 8th school year here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you live around here?
I live over the line. I live in Rhode Island. I live in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. So it's door to door. It's about 37 miles. It's about a 45 to 50 minute commute for me every day.
I remember when I lived in Providence, I would hitch on to 146 and just come on up from that way.
Exactly.
Joe has a lot to talk about. We were just talking about you've got the exchange program now to Spain.
Sure. Yeah. So super exciting and so happy for our kids in our district that we have this new unique opportunity. It started probably in the talking phases at least 2-3 years ago, but it really came to fruition this September, where we started the school year. The first 2 weeks of school, we had 21 students from Spain, from a sister school in San Sebastian, Santa Teresa, come and spend 2 weeks with us. And then a day later, a group of us, along with 16 Nipmuc students, went over and spent 2 weeks over there.
Wow.
So just a real powerful learning experience for our kids, not only with the whole language acquisition piece, but probably more importantly, that cultural proficiency piece of really, literally, taking the places of their peers overseas to really understand the Spanish way of life, the Spanish culture, and so on. So a real powerful learning experience. A considerable amount of the students that went over, I think it was something like 12 of the 16, were students that had been part of our Spanish immersion program. Since kindergarten, so their level of proficiency with Spanish was already very high.
Yeah.
But when you really immerse yourself in a place, as you may know, it really takes your level of learning that much higher.
Well, I know back in high school they gave us a choice. You could actually, it was before high school. I think it was middle school. They're pretty progressive. I grew up in Wilbraham. I got a hand.
Oh, okay. So you're a Western Mass person, just like me.
Yeah. They gave us a choice. You could either take French or Spanish.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, French sounds more glamorous, and maybe it's easier. I took it. It's not easier than Spanish.
No.
And I took it for 4 or 5 years. I could speak it. We had pen pals in France.
Okay, yeah.
Went back and forth. It was a very good experience. Now, a lot of the kids were trying to tell me, you took French. We're taking Spanish, and it's easier. Is it true?
In my humble opinion, no, it's not. I've studied both, and I'm still in the process because I love what we're doing in the district. I absolutely love our Spanish immersion program. So I've kind of been studying over the last year and a half or so to improve my own Spanish. And no, I think it's still understanding the structure of the language, the syntax, the colloquial phrases, etc. So I don't think one is necessarily simpler than the other. They're both romantic languages. I mean, maybe if we were having a discussion about Mandarin, or Russian,
Hindu.
But they're equally challenging for our students. But to kind of get back to the larger point of really having a larger perspective, a global perspective, knowing what it means to be a global citizen. But I think in the big picture, without getting preachy about it, Jan, understanding that while there may be differences between different peoples and different cultures, the things that bind us together are a lot more meaningful and a lot more significant and far greater than the things that separate us.
That's such a cool thing to be able to go to another country.
Yeah.
Even if it's only for 2 weeks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And they would stay with families there?
Yeah, and when push comes to shove, I was actively involved. Really, the heart and soul of this project was our Spanish immersion coordinator, a woman by the name of Katie Cardamone, dynamite teacher. She teaches 4th grade Spanish immersion at Memorial here in Upton. And I think in working with Katie, we obsessed on a lot of the details, and we spent 3 days in Madrid, so you worry about every single particular detail and safety and so on. But really, when push comes to shove, the feedback that we've gotten almost universally has been positive, because it really was all about the relationships.
Yeah.
It was about the relationships that our students and their students made, along with the families
The
and
friendships,
the friendships, all of those connections. And I think, when we look at the heart of what we were trying to accomplish, objective achieved 100%.
Yeah.
So we hope to do more with that, perhaps expand it to other world languages or other opportunities for our Spanish immersion students in the lower grades, more travel or cross-cultural connections.
Awesome. When Joe walked in, he presented me. They've got a great new booklet out called Inspire. And what does this contain?
So we're super, super excited about this. This is our brand new 5-year strategic plan, which was just approved by the Regional School Committee on August 30th. And it's our strategic plan that covers this year through 2023.
Yeah.
And just like we did with our previous strategic plan forward, it's really the blueprint for that guides all of our services, our programming, our staffing, and all of our significant decision making in the regional school district over the next 5 years.
We are talking with Joe Maruszczak. I've got it. And he is our superintendent right here in the Mendon Upton schools. If you're watching from out of town, out of state, we've got a real great superintendent.
Well, thank you. That's
now, there
very
is
kind.
a page on page 9 got my attention. The competencies in detail. Can you tell us what you want to move that?
Sure. What we've done, and a lot of other school districts across the nation that are kind of progressive in their thinking, have started to define something known as the portrait of a graduate, which really kind of speaks to what specific competencies do all of our kids need upon graduating to really have the skill set, the habits of mind to be successful in not only today's economy, but also kind of being forward thinking about it, of what are the skills that kids are going to need, particularly in looking at trends around technology and particularly automation, where the real jobs are going to lie. So over the course of about 6 months, our district strategic planning committee met, and about 30 individuals who are parents, community members, teachers, students, administrators, every single stakeholder group. And what they did is they defined the 6 competencies that really define our district's portrait of a graduate. As you could see, global citizen, solution seeker, skillful collaborator, inspired innovator, mindful learner, and effective communicator.
2 that immediately jump out at me. So important. A skillful collaborator. Be able to work with others.
Absolutely.
I believe that to be a good leader, you have to kind of be a pretty good follower, too. And then an effective communicator. I
Yeah.
grew up with those things in my family.
Absolutely.
So it's so important, and listen. To be a listener, too. That's a good leader.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we see these as, the real essential skill set for the 21st century. And the real challenge now lies that these are 6 competency areas, but they're not exclusively in the domain of just Nipmuc Regional High School. That in planning all of our curriculum, planning programs, and scope and sequence and so on, how do we be very explicit in creating learning opportunities that address all 6 of these areas at every single level? So obviously an effective communication, looks different for a kindergartner at Memorial versus a 6th grader in a social studies class at MISCO versus a senior in AP US history and so on. Sure. So it's a progression, but I think it's a useful framework to craft our curriculum, but also our professional practices, our instruction, and how we're assessing kids around this framework.
Joe, how can they reach you?
You can reach me in a whole multitude of ways.
Yeah.
I would say the easiest would just to go to our website, www.mursd.org. You can find my contact information under the superintendent's page. You could also call me, go old school, go telephone, 401-634-1585, or through social media. I have a fairly robust Twitter presence, and my Twitter handle is at JPMMURSD, and I tweet very frequently.
You're a tweeter.
I am.
All right.
I am.
That's all I could do. I've got a millennial son. And a number of years ago, I finally gave in. I said, all right, I'll learn how to do email. I was working with a lawyer at the time, and the only way to get a hold of this guy, he liked email. I'd try to reach him like this. I'm like, I've had it. I'm going to give it. It took me a month to learn it. I'd go to different libraries and ask for help. Got it. Got it. I just nail emailing, and then my son's growing up. He's doing this. Texting.
Yeah, millennials do not use email.
Oh, so finally I learned how to text, and then I couldn't get a hold of him, so now I do check email. He says, Mom, you're the only one I know who does that.
He's probably right.
Oh, but he's one of these techie geniuses that he's way over my head. But
Yeah.
I was in this wonderful brochure, MURSD, it's mission statement.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
So, our mission speaks to, I think it's something that's short. It is succinct, and it kind of speaks to something that everybody in the organization can know. And our mission statement is simply this: we empower all learners to thrive.
All right, that brings me to our friends who have ADHD, autism. That we got to include.
Absolutely. And again, we were very intentional in two words there: empower and the word thrive. Thrive means across all domains, not only academic, but also a real emphasis of this plan is social emotional.
Right.
That if you think about the world that our kids are growing up in today, and the incredible amount of pressure that is upon them in almost every single element of society, I think you're starting to see the pendulum swing a little bit back. There's been so much emphasis since 1993 around standards and things like MCAS and accountability and so on, that I think that's been part of the element that's added more pressure upon our kids, but also a lot of pressure on our teachers.
That's what happened when my son was in 3rd grade over in Whitensville. He was in 3rd or 4th grade. He just froze. So the assistant principal, smart guy, he came in and says, let's go for a walk. So he took Wally for a walk, got his mind off of it.
Okay.
Wally went back. But the teacher was out there pacing the hall. You talk about stress.
Yeah. And I think we're trying to take a thoughtful pause, and it's kind of interesting. At this Monday night's school committee meeting, I'll be presenting our latest round of MCAS scores and accountability rankings and so on. And I can think back, just back to my first couple years of being a superintendent in this district, how I really, to a certain degree, I obsessed on those scores. I very much made them front and center. I can remember, again, putting together PowerPoint presentations and presenting them in all 4 buildings to the faculties. I'm in a place right now, I don't want any part of that. And I view MCAS as one small measure, albeit probably a really imperfect measure, of what our kids know and are able to do. And I think in no way, shape, or form should standardized test scores be the measure of a student's ultimate achievement? It certainly shouldn't be used as a measure of an educator's effectiveness.
Right.
So I think where we've been in the last 10, 15 years has been a remarkably stressful place for our students and for our educators. And another element of this plan that I'm super proud of is the fact that it is a step back, and it's saying, look, we want to have a conversation and we want to create programming and services and learning opportunities for our kids that speak to the whole child.
Right.
So it's not, a lot easier for me to say it than for it to actually be done. But I think that this, like you point out, Jan, is a strong mission statement.
Yeah.
It's a strong vision of what we want for all of our kids.
I know that the teachers aren't taught, and it's not their fault, for handling a child with ADHD or conduct disorder. Unfortunately, conduct disorder and the ADHD does not mean the child is not bright as you know what up here. And I've seen, not in this school system, but another one, they'll put them in the special ed class. And what do you think that does to the confidence and the ego of
Sure.
the kid who is okay?
Sure.
They're not slow, and they're like, why'd you do that?
Sure.
Oh, they learn differently.
Yeah, and and I can honestly say, I'm very, very proud of our staff in Mendon Upton in that they look at children very holistically. They look at kids as all of us as learners, and again, to go back to that mission, we intentionally used the term learners. We didn't use the term students. We didn't use the term children. Because again, I think it's a vision of saying we're all learners. Even the adults in this organization, it's all about lifelong learning.
Yep.
I kind of go back to my journey over the last year and a half in learning Spanish. I had 3 years in the Agawam public schools.
Oh, Agawam was here where I grew up.
Yeah. And, unfortunately, in the 1980s, it probably wasn't the absolute best instruction. But I think it's very, very important for me as the superintendent to constantly be learning and to model that and to model it in a very public way.
Right.
So again, I'll get off my soapbox, but we are all learners.
And also, I think it's important that, like when my son was in elementary, that assistant principal showed not only his caring about Wally and like, not a problem, we'll just go out and and then you can go back and take your test.
Yeah.
But he had that concept of, I'm going to make a little fun here. This kid and I are going to go out and just change the subject. And,
Yeah.
And he did it, and he could relate to the child. He understood.
Yeah, and sometimes kids totally need that.
Oh, he did. He definitely did. Remember the SATs?
I do.
Oh, 3 hours of sitting there.
Yeah.
And I remember, finally, I got so fed up, Joe. I went, okay, when in doubt, circle number 3.
See.
I made it into college.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'd had it. By the second hour, I'm like, I've had it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily nervous, but, oh my God, no break?
Yeah.
What is with these people?
Yeah.
Now, I would keep going here. Portrait of the graduate, that's what we've been talking about.
Sure.
And strategic initiatives, engaging the community as partners.
Sure, yeah. So very, very similar to what we did in our previous strategic plan. The general framework would be I refer to them as the 4 big rocks or the 4 overarching goals, which we refer to as strategic objectives. So the 4 are engaging communities, our communities as partners in learning, supporting social emotional learning, so our schools are safe, healthy, and balanced learning environments, redefining and reimagining school to empower learning for a modern context. So it kind of speaks to, do we have programs and services in place that will end up in having learning opportunities that kind of speak to those portrait of a graduate competencies, and then aligning our professional practices with our district's beliefs about learning. So if you look at the beliefs about learning, I believe there's 5 of them. It's right on page 2.
Okay.
And it's kind of, I see this as kind of the push challenge to all of us educators within the district, that if you look at what these beliefs are, things like we really need to be nurturing kids' curiosity and kind of speak to their interests and their passions.
Funny you should mention that. I was zeroing right in on the word curiosity.
Yeah. Or we want learning environments that are active, creative, purposeful, and reflective.
Yeah.
We want kids to engage in authentic experiences and create products that have meaning and relevance. I think, if you take these belief statements at face value, I kind of say, well, yeah, they're motherhood and apple pie. Like, how are you going to disagree with these? But I think the real challenge, the push for all of us is, well, is everything that we're doing on a daily basis really aligned with these beliefs? So that if I were to walk into, let me just say, I'm just coming up with something completely random. This is not based in reality. But say I walked into a middle school social studies classroom, and I saw kids working on a worksheet. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, there might be some content there that's valuable, but is what the kids are doing necessarily aligned with these beliefs about learning? So I think that is our challenge. To ensure that we're crafting really, really high-quality learning opportunities that envelop these beliefs about learning. And again, these beliefs about learning weren't developed completely in a vacuum, where it was this committee of 30 that said, hey, let's dream up things that we think are special. It was, hey, what does current research and best practice tell us about how kids learn in a deep and powerful way? We spent all of last school year in all 4 buildings asking our staffs to reflect upon how people learn powerfully and deeply. We did at Nipmuc something called Food for Thought lunches. Our principal, John Clements, and actually now co-principal, Marianne Moran, would basically, on a monthly basis, take almost like a focus group of 30 kids, feed them lunch, and ask them to reflect upon some questions. And they would fill up a wall with Post-it notes. And one of the Food for Lunch prompts, Food for Thought lunch prompts, was, how do people learn most powerfully and deeply? So realize these 5 statements really represent a broad consensus of viewpoint.
I love that. You engage the kids to do it, because I think, when we go to school, you think, here are the teachers and the staff up here, and here I am down here, and what do I count? But bringing them in is brilliant. Joe, you're accessible to the parents that want to talk with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Joe, again, how can people reach you?
So go to our website, www.mursd, and I believe there's a tab there that says our superintendent. There's my handsome mug there and a message, but I think you can get my contact information as far as phone number, which is 508-634-1585, and also my email address. Or please feel free to reach me through Twitter. My Twitter handle is @JPMMURSD. So my initials, Joseph P. Maruszczak, JPM, and then MURSD.
We've been talking with Joe Maruszczak. I said it right.
You
Superintendent of our Mendon and Upton schools. Before we close, if you have a vision for coming up for 2019, what is it?
Wow. I would say to continue in the same direction that we've been in over the last 2 or 3 years, where we're creating more high-quality learning opportunities for all our students. We're thinking outside of the box. Again, I talked about the exchange program, but we've been doing over the last, I believe now 3 years, something called 21st Century Learning Conferences. at Nipmuc. We've been doing them twice a year, where we completely shut down the school, and students, we bring in community members, we bring in parents to run workshops on a whole multitude of things like balancing a checkbook, how to finance a car. We had somebody do a half-day workshop on snowshoeing. We've had people doing things on knitting and sewing and so on. And it kind of speaks to learning opportunities that speak to student interests and student passions, but it's, again, framed around that essential skill set that we want students to have. So I bring that up as a vignette because I think it's all about creating safe, nurturing learning environments in all 4 of our schools, but giving kids high-quality learning opportunities.
How about safety, Joe?
It's something that is a constant concern. I think both of our communities have really stepped up with regard to our partnership with both the Mendon and the Upton police departments. Now Mendon is completely commensurate with Upton, where I have a full-time school resource officer as well at Misco Hill and Clough Elementary School. Just like for many years, we've had Carl at both the Carl Ambrosino as our SRO at both Nipmuc and Memorial. And we're in constant communication with both chiefs, Chief Bradley and Chief Kersey, in updating our security protocols. We're have many plans in looking at things to the effect of active shooter drills and so on, which is very unfortunate, and I know it causes concern, particularly with our younger students. But I think, unfortunately, in today's day and age, and what we're living through with the prevalence of school shootings, we have to take every precaution possible.
So different these days. Even, my son is like 26. Even back when he was in school, this wasn't even in our thoughts.
No.
But now, you send your child off to school and you hope and you pray, I hope a great day, and they come home to me. Everything's
I was jarred. I was jarred after Parkland.
Yeah.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it occurred on Valentine's Day of this year. I had a parent ask me, and she wasn't being facetious. She wasn't being facetious. She wasn't trying to make a point. It was in the course of conversation. She said to me, Joe, when do you think it's going to happen here?
Oh, gee.
And by here, she specifically meant Mendon Upton.
Yes.
She didn't mean Massachusetts or regionally and so on.
Yeah.
And I said to her very genuinely, no, I don't think it's going to happen. And you have to do a lot of things with your children, but also community-wide, that are proactive. There's a lot of great programs like Sandy Hook Promise and Say Something and so on that, we're in the process of either implementing or exploring that really kind of speaks to school culture. And the thing that I feel very positive about in all 4 of our schools is our culture and the relationships that exist among our students and staff and families that are really the preventive measures so that we don't get to the point where there is a tragedy.
So in other words, we're mindful of the fact that, my son has a friend, or my daughter has a friend who is struggling, and we all know it, but nobody maybe at their home is paying attention.
Correct.
So it's
Exactly.
okay. It's okay to say something.
Correct.
Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
Uh,
Do you have any extras? You could post it right downstairs on the bulletin board.
Absolutely.
Take a look downstairs
Absolutely.
at the Upton Library.
Plus, it's also, if you go to, again, our website, www.mursd, there's a link right on the homepage, and you could also download a PDF of it.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's really cool. And are they welcome to come sit in at the Monday night?
Oh,
school?
absolutely. We meet every other Monday night. So it's basically twice per month. We rotate between the Professional Development Center, the PDC, which is right above the library at Nipmuc Regional High School, and then also in my office, the superintendent's office at Misco Hill.
And you can go too if you're a parent and you want to come.
It's an open public meeting.
Sure. Thanks so much.
All
for
right.
being
It was
with
a
us.
pleasure as always,
All
Jan.
righty. We'll see you next time. I'll be my guest.